Hello, everyone, and welcome to GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling podcast. I am running over here on YouTube.com, and it is time for a pay-per-view review. It is AEW's All Out that happened on September 5th, 2020. Um, you know, Overall, I felt like the show was a good show. In all fairness, I thought this was a good show with one very glaring spot in the show that kind of took you out of it for a good chunk of the show, if not the rest of the show in general. You probably know what I'm talking about, and I will get into that here just a little bit later on. But let's go ahead and start with the beginning match on the show, and it was going to be Big Swole going up against Dr. Britt Baker in a tooth and nails match. This was a cinematic match. This was originally slated for a pre-show match, but then they decided to run two other matches on the pre-show, and this one opened up the actual show itself. Overall, I felt like this was a pretty decent cinematic match. It wasn't anything overly spectacular, but it was also one of those matches that didn't feel like it didn't stay too long, but it never felt too short to go along with it. They have Swole showing up at Britt Baker's dentist office. I would imagine they did some kind of dentist office. I don't know what they exactly used for this particular area. Rebel was the one that was there to greet Big Swole. Swole eventually attacks her, and she goes on the hunt for Britt Baker. They kind of play this off as like a little bit of a horror movie film. You got some little horror movie background, like horror movie music background noise for a little bit until Britt Baker and Big Swole start fighting, and of course they start fighting throughout the entire area, and you kind of have Rebel in there for comic relief, where it seems like they're gonna double team Swole at any given point in time, but Rebel is the one who kind of takes the brunt of most of the comedy spots in this particular match, getting thrown into the dumpster, other particular areas to go along with this. They continue to brawl throughout the entire dentistry office, which eventually leads them into an office where Britt Baker pulls out a power drill and looks like she's going to use the power drill on Big Swole. She ends up missing that, goes to use a Novocaine shot, and actually takes a shot of Novocaine. Well, I don't know what they exactly filled it with. I imagine it was just some form of water or something to go along with that. But, took a needle to the leg, and then Swole uses the sleeping gas mask to make Britt Baker pass out, and she technically wins the match. Overall, I felt like this was pretty well done, especially for cinematic matches. I've been a big fan of those since they've kind of started using them during the pandemic times with WWE and AEW. Both sides are kind of swaying away from those, and I think AEW really only does them on their pay-per-views, and since their pay-per-views are like once every 2 to 4 months between hand, you don't really see them that often, where WWE, it seemed like every single pay-per-view had one of those type of matches for a while. But this one was a pretty decent one. Nice little touches of comedy, but being serious to go along with it as well. Interesting that Britt Baker woke up that quickly after the sleeping gas, because usually if they put sleeping gas on you, even if it's like for a mere few seconds, you're usually out for hours to go along with that. But Baker was, kind of coming to his like, what happened type moment at the end. Overall, felt it was kind of a good match. Nice cinematic style match, obviously, not like your traditional wrestling match to go along with that. We do get some of that a little bit later down the line. On that one. So this brings us to the Young Bucks going up against Jurassic Express, and the Bucks and Jurassic Express got this match based around winning an 8-man tag match. I believe this is also for #1 contendership over the AEW tag team titles to go along with that. We'll get more into the AEW tag team titles a little bit later on. The Bucks are kind of showing more aggressive tendencies, a little bit more heelish. You could definitely feel they were playing the heel in this particular match, while still doing more of their acrobatic and high-flying stuff to go along with it, but you got extra aggressive moments in there. I like the aspect of, Jungle Boy going for a going for a hot tag, and then I believe it was Matt Jackson who just super kicks Luchasaurus off of the ring apron. Good back and forth. Luchasaurus does eventually get the hot tag, which he has one of the better hot tags in the business at this point in time. I absolutely like that. Overall, eventually it comes down to the end where Nick Jackson actually hits a destroyer on Luchasaurus, and Matt Jackson super kicks Marco's stunt. Bucks will eventually win the match with a BTE trigger in the middle of the ring on Jungle Boy. Honestly, I personally like this match, and it really did show a little bit more of an aggressive side towards the Young Bucks, and what we've been seeing on TV as of late, especially with them and Adam Hangman Page. Again, more on that a little bit later, because we've been seeing those tendencies with Kenny Omega. We see a little bit more of that here to go along with it, and then a couple of other little interesting snippets on that one as well. We'll talk about that once we get to the match. Up next was the Casino Battle Royal. So the first ones out were Trent, Christopher Daniels, Jake Hager, The Blade, and Ray Phoenix. Up after that was Kazarian, Will Hobbs, and it will be Chucky T, Santana, and Ortiz were the second ones out. The third ones to come out, Sorry. The third ones to come out on that one were going to be Ricky Stark, Billy Gunn, Pentagon Jr., Brian Cage, and Darby Allin. They eventually did come out, and the final set to come out was Shawn Spears, Eddie Kingston, The Butcher, Sonny Kiss, and Lance Archer. They do start. This was kind of just like a battle royal. Honestly, a lot of brawling, kind of waiting for spots here and there. It does pick up a bit towards the end, but nothing really spectacular about this Casino Battle Royal, to be 100% honest with you. On that one, the Joker card ended out being Matt Sydal, who does last until the final three in the match. The unfortunate thing was that he comes out, kind of a surprise. Matt Sydal is the Joker card. He hits a knee on Shawn Spears and ends out botching the Shooting Star Press. Looked like he hopefully didn't hurt himself here. We can't really say so much about the next match on that one. But it was, it's kind of one of those moments that's like, Matt Sydal has gone for the Shooting Star Press so many times. He's got one of the best ones in the business. And lo and behold, he gets it on a bigger stage and ends out botching it right off the bat. You kind of got a feel for him at that point in time. It was also a very interesting little snippet there, because I think there was a baseball stadium very close by and the game had just ended at the time. And lo and behold, a bunch of fireworks go off during the middle of this match. The wrestlers just go on as everything is going with it. Also, you had some interesting spots, and it was kind of telling where they were going with some spots here. A little bit later, you had Darby Allin in the match, and you had Brian Cage and Ricky Stark bringing a body bag, and then they put thumbtacks in the bag, which most of them ended up falling out, but they end up putting Darby Allin into the body bag, and Brian Cage, what you would have to hope was in a powerbomb position. Then that's what I'm saying. It's like, Darby Allin's in the body bag, and he powerbombs Darby Allin out of the ring onto the staging in the body bag. Like, no way for him to protect himself in any way, shape, or form. And this kind of became a trend of what we were seeing, at least for the next couple of matches, and I'm going to get into that on the next one. Towards the end, again, it comes down to the final four, which was the Butcher, Eddie Kingston, and Matt Sydal. The Butcher does get eliminated, I believe, by Yeah, he gets eliminated by Matt Sydal. Kingston ends up actually eliminating Sydal right afterwards with a little bit of help for Lance Archer, and then they kind of set up the blade comes back up, come out. They've set themselves up. Eddie Kingston and Lance Archer. They're both fighting on the outside. Both of them have gone over the top rope as well. They're just fighting on the ring apron. Eventually, Lance Archer throws Eddie Kingston into the Butcher and the Blade to win the match in the Casino Battle Royal. Like I said, this was kind of a battle royal. There wasn't really much to it on that one, but Lance Archer is going to get a AEW World Title shot down the line. We will basically say who that will be a little bit later in this review as well, but up next is Matt Hardy going up against Sammy Guevara in what was a Broken Rules match or Last Man Standing match in this one. Instead of starting this match in the ring, they do basically start this match around where the football stadium was, and it's kind of even telling to play that off of the Stadium Stampede from the last pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, to go along with it. I even like the little snippet that Sammy Guevara is now chasing Matt Hardy with the golf cart. It kind of backfires on them. They start brawling through the area. Matt Hardy hits a DDT on one of those like plastic picnic table things that you see like out in the parks or anything like that. It was very sickening looking, honestly, on that one. And trust me, this was not the worst thing that happened in this match. It ended up getting a little bit worse right after that because they fight to a scissors lift. Matt Hardy's going to go for a side effect. Sammy Guevara counters. By the way, they've risen the scissors lift. Matt Hardy risen the scissors lift up quite a bit of ways. Sammy Guevara ends up spearing Matt Hardy off, and Sammy lands kind of okay, but Matt Hardy misses the tables, at least with like his, back and in like the upper portion of his body, and hits like smack dab on the concrete, and you can tell lights are out. He is gone. Referee Aubrey Edwards throws up the X, trying to end this match. Matt Hardy actually tries getting up, and you can tell something's wrong there because he's stumbling around. Nobody really knowing what to do on that one. Aubrey throws up the X again. Eventually, you hear a bell, and the trainer comes in, and then they separate both of them. But lo and behold, as they're continuing on, Matt Hardy comes back, and they restart the match for whatever reason. Later, I think they said that the trainer checked him out and gave him the okay to go back. Matt Hardy saying, they even tried to play off as like Matt Hardy said he was okay, and the trainer looked at him and said he could go back. And with the way that went and the way that Matt Hardy was stumbling around at that point in time, even if he does gain his bearings, even after like 2-3 minutes, it just no go. Just end this here and now. But they end up continuing on with the match. They basically go cut right to the finish. They climb up the staging in the arena, and Sammy Guevara is sent off of the staging into into the boxes down below, and Matt Hardy ends out winning the match. You know what? I was almost done right there at that point in time, because the spot that they did at the height that they did it, and with what they had there to protect themselves, was absolutely unnecessary in any way, shape, or form. It was overly dangerous, and I couldn't believe that they actually allowed the match to continue in any way, shape, or form. Like, the trainer or the ref need to say, no more. No more. I don't care if you feel like you can go or anything like that. That's a point that you just say it's done, because we've seen these issues with concussions before. And yes, the wrestlers try to get through the match and just end that there. It's like there needs to be a protocol, because there is a protocol after the fact with everything, but there needs to be a protocol for a match itself, saying it's like, hey, okay, I feel like they're concussed, just end it, go, done. I don't care if you feel like you can go or anything to go along with that. The spot itself was absolutely absolutely unnecessary. It was unsafe. Now, yes, probably the two of them had agreed upon this spot based on how it was set up and everything to go along with that, and both of them were okay doing it, but it obviously went horrifically wrong, and just a spot like that was absolutely unnecessary. And based off of what you saw a little bit later, it looked massively tame based off of what we had just seen to go along with it. And again, like I don't feel like they should have restarted this match, anything to go along with it. And yes, I do get a little bit of more hindsight because I am filming this a little bit later on a Sunday, that yes, Tony Khan did come out and say that Matt Hardy luckily is okay and did not receive a concussion. But it doesn't change the fact that that spot didn't need to happen in any way, shape, or form. Something massively wrong could have happened through that spot, and it was definitely not set up in a way that was, remotely safe to both of them. Both of them could have been severely injured off of that. To go along with that, Matt Hardy looked like he got massively injured through this one. Luckily, from what we can tell, he's okay. That's good on that one. But still, this is one of those areas of, do you call AEW the major leagues, or do you call it almost like an indie show? I try to consider the AEW a major league style wrestling, but spots like that are stuff that you see at indie shows. Stuff that is like, I've got to try to get myself to be a meme or this or that. They are unnecessary, and you can come up with something that looks just as spectacular. And that didn't even look spectacular. You can come up with something that looks horrific, but extremely safe to go along with it. And it would have come off even better than what that was at that point in time. And it just, I can't say enough, like, how much I thought. I was like, wow. And this just took me away from a lot of the other matches on the night to go along with that afterwards. And I mean, to a certain degree, I kind of can put more glowing reviews to the other matches after this, because I did have to tune in like partway through the show because I was at work earlier, and then I had to watch this match later. But you could definitely, when I came home, it's like, this crowd doesn't really seem to be a lot into it. And then I had to do some research, and then when I saw this, it's like, I understand why the crowd was not into this stuff, a lot of the stuff afterwards to go along with that, because this probably just took them out of it in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, it's just, why did they even do it? And why did they allow it to continue after the fact to go along with it? Yeah, that very much, very, very much not a fan of what they ended up doing there. But up next was Hikaru Shida going up against Thunder Rosa for the AEW Women's Championship. And honestly, I really liked this match. I really did end out liking this match in the end. Very good technical use from both ends here. You saw little snippets of each of them doing what the other one would do best. Shida was considered the better striker, even though, yes, Thunder Rosa is an MMA person. Shida's always been known for strikes. Thunder Rosa has that, but also has lucha libre. You're seeing like little tricks and little takes from both ends on both of them in this one. Even Thunder Rosa is like, Shida likes to do a launch off of a chair to do a flying elbow or a knee at somebody. Well, Thunder Rosa does it back to Shida when she sets it up. I loved what they were doing on this one, and they used their environment around them and their big spots felt a little bit more, even though they were very infrequent. I thought this was actually really well done, and they really picked it up towards the end of the match. Eventually, though, yes, Shida does pick up the victory after hitting her running knee strike on Thunder Rosa. I personally thought this was a great match. This is probably one of the better women's matches that we have seen. We saw a couple of good ones over this last week with Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb, and then Thunder Rosa and Shida. Honestly, this is probably the best women's match that they put on since Shida and Nyla Rose at Double or Nothing. Though I would say Penelope Ford and Shida's match was actually quite good as well. But this was definitely one of their better showings. And yes, is it telling of what the women's division is like that they bring in somebody from the from outside to face Shida at the pay-per-view with the NWA Women's Champion? Yes, it is. But, we ended up getting a really good match out of it. I thoroughly enjoyed this. And if they can get Thunder Rosa to do a few more matches with Shida in some way, I think they can, maybe, build up that women's division a little bit better on that one to go along with it. Up next, we did have, we had a quick backstage segment with Sabian and Penelope Ford. They had basically announced that they were getting engaged. They are going to be doing a wedding on Dynamite, but they need a bachelor party, and a best man will be announced for Wednesday for Kip Sabian's best man for his wedding to go along with it. Interesting little segment, kind of building up towards the next Dynamite on Wednesday. Up next, this is an 8-man tag. It is Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, Colt Cabana, and Mr. Brody Lee going up against the Natural Nightmares. It's Dustin Rhodes, QT Marshall, Matt Cardona, and Scorpio Sky. Honestly, I thought this was a pretty decent 8-man tag match with this one. Again, like I said, the crowd kind of, not into a lot of everything, especially after what had just happened with Matt Hardy a couple of matches ago. But honestly, I felt like this was a relatively good match. You had a lot of the faces taking the heat, and a couple of hot tags. One from a bunch of time where QT Marshall was taking the heat, and then when he got the hot tag to Matt Cardona, eventually Matt Cardona takes a bunch of heat and gets the hot tag, I believe, to Scorpio Sky. Eventually, Dustin Rhodes does get back into the ring. We didn't see much of Scorpio Sky in this match, which is kind of unfortunate on that one, but Dustin does get back in the ring. He gets taken out eventually by Brody Lee, who sets up for Colt Cabana to come in and take the victory. He's done that in a few past tag matches where he beats down the opponent and Colt can just come in and take the pin. But Colt wants to impress Mr. Brody Lee. He goes for a moonsault, which misses, and Dustin gets the roll up and gets the pin. Brody is not happy after the fact, as the faces do celebrate. Brody is not happy and goes after everyone, such as Evil Uno, pushing out or was it John Silver, and he eventually shoves down Colt Cabana. It's like, wait a minute, and Colt just has that bit where it's like, what just happened? It's like, I'm sorry, it was my bad. He was kind of shocked at what Brody Lee was doing, though, as you have always seen with Brody Lee, whenever Colt comes out and when they're about to do something bad, they take Colt away. So Colt usually doesn't see this end of Brody, but he's beginning to see that at this point. Evil Uno does help him up. This eventually leads to a backstage interview with Dustin Rhodes and Tony Schiavone. A very fiery promo from Dustin, talking about how we did this for Cody, and that Cody was going to come back and take what was his. And then Tony announces or Schiavone ends out announcing that Tony Khan has signed a match with Dustin Rhodes and Mr. Brody Lee for the TNT title. And again, he gives another fiery bit about, I haven't had a chance at winning gold in a long time. Thank you, and it's like, I'm going to give everything I have for this one. I actually like this promo from Dustin Rhodes. It was a very good, fiery babyface promo leading into that match for the TNT title on Wednesday night. This brings us now to the AEW Tag Team title match. It is FTR going up against Kenny Omega and Adam Page. Everybody was kind of wondering how this is going because Kenny Omega left Adam Hangman Page kind of hanging on Wednesday night, but they were working together quite well throughout the entire match. Great stuff throughout this entire match. I love the tag team style of FTR, and if you watch the Revival or anything like that, especially during their NXT days and during a good portion of their main roster days as well, FTR is very good, and I like the aspect of them grounding both of them, eventually working over Kenny Omega's knee, and he is actually a little worse for wear in this match. He does get that tag to Adam Page. It looks like they're gonna win with the V trigger bug shot lariat that misses. Kenny eventually goes for a V trigger on his own where Page is holding up. I believe it was Cash at the time. Cash gets out of the way and he hits the V trigger on Adam Page, and Adam Page is not able to recover from this. 2 spike pile drivers later, and it is over with, and we have new AEW tag team champions in FTR. They celebrate and leave. It looks like Kenny Omega was going to hit Adam Page, decides not to do that after the match, but then Page is trying to come to. He goes for some help from Kenny, who doesn't help him and just walks off. He eventually walks to the Bucks, and it's like where the Bucks are kind of in a different demeanor at this point in time about everything. It's like, dude, is everything okay? Anything like that? Everything like that. Kenny's saying he needs a clean break from Adam Page. It's done. You guys already kicked him out of the league. I just need a clean break from him. It's like, are you coming with me or not? The Bucks end up not going with Kenny in this particular sense, but Kenny ends out leaving the arena in a huff on that one. We'll see where they end up going with everything on this one right afterwards. So this brings us to the Mimosa Mayhem match. It is Chris Jericho going up against Orange Cassidy. Yes, the fans were singing Judas, and yes, as mentioned before, and we've known this for a few weeks, that AEW has been allowing minimal fans with social distancing into the crowd. I believe they're allowed for like a 10% capacity for crowds at this point. And so I think it's a 5,000 seat arena, which they are a theater, and they can allow upwards of about 500 fans. And you could tell there's a little bit of a difference with the shows because you're having live crowd there. They were singing Judas throughout this, and kind of nice to hear that again. But let's get into the Mimosa Mayhem match. I said when I was doing predictions here that this was probably the most WWE style match that I had seen, or at least concept, that you win by pinfall submission or being thrown into a vat of mimosa, which looked like they did not use orange juice, by the way. It looks like they used Tang or something like that. And this match was kind of what you thought it was going to be. It was a brawl in between the two of them. I like that they emphasized the rules that, somebody going into the mimosa wasn't just like a body part going in. It had to be the entire body. You had to be drenched by the mimosa to lose that way. So you got spots where Chris Jericho put Orange Cassidy's face into the mimosa, but his entire body didn't go in, so he technically didn't lose. Same with Chris Jericho. His leg went in at one point when he went over the top rope, but he doesn't lose because his entire body didn't go in. I thought they did a pretty decent job of doing that as well, of playing around with what they had there. You did have a promo beforehand about Jericho saying that this was an experiment to see if he could make Orange Cassidy a main event player. And yes, he could do that. But it was not going to be enough tonight, and he was going to win the match. Overall, like I said, I thought this was a decent brawl, but this was definitely not my style match for this one. I'm just not a big fan of matches like this in any way. and it's probably just my own personal taste. I felt like they did well with what they had around them, which eventually led to Jericho looking like he was going to try to do a superplex into the mimosa for Orange Cassidy. Orange counters, hits 2 orange punches, and Jericho goes in. Orange Cassidy wins the feud, and he beats Chris Jericho for the second time. The one thing that I could really say from this match is I really actually liked Orange Cassidy a little bit more in this match, because you saw a little bit of a different side of him. He wasn't doing the normal, I'm just going to put my hands in my pockets, I'm just going to loaf around or anything like that. No, he was fire right off the bat, and I like seeing a little bit of a different side of Orange Cassidy with that versus just him doing the ho-hum stuff all the time. I felt like that gimmick was only going to last for so long. And, now that he can show a full serious side, outside of like getting serious like halfway through a match or 3/4 of the way through a match, doing it right off the bat, it can also play to the fact that he can just do the ho-hum stuff every now and again as well, and it doesn't get old. It doesn't get old as quick to go along with it. I do like certain aspects of this match, even though I was not the biggest fan of this match to go along with it. But it is what it is. Some people have different tastes. This was definitely not one of my this was definitely not up my alley for that style of match. So this brings us to the main event of the night. It is the AEW title match. Is Jon Moxley going up against MJF. And this is where the paradigm shift is, yes, banned in this match. But they also make the announcement that not only would Jon Moxley get disqualified if he uses the paradigm shift, he would lose the title as well. So they have that little snippet going in there. I like that they did do a couple little teases where Jon Moxley looked like he was going to go for it. I even like the aspect of MJF spitting in his face, trying to goat Jon Moxley into using the move. Also, just this match in general, I thought came off really well, because you have the brawler and Moxley, you have the wrestler and MJF. And a good portion of the match, whenever it was in the ring, was in favor of MJF. And you saw that throughout most of the match to go along with it. But if it did go outside, it looked like, okay, MJF has control. He's like, okay, we're okay to go outside. Moxley is almost automatically in control. He does throw MJF into the ring post, who ends out bleeding. He ends out bleeding twice in this match, actually. It was once after the ring post, where I would imagine that's where he did a blade or whatever they decided to do for blood on that one. And then after a series of headbutts inside of the ring as well by Moxley. Like I said, I thought this was a really well-told story between the two of them. It was the brawler trying to get his way going into the match, his style going in the match, and you had the wrestler trying to get his style going in the match, and there was good back and forth between the two of them, making their styles work within the match itself. The ending of the match does see Wardlow again, who was getting interference in like small little snippets here, not actually getting physical in the match, but like causing a small distraction to allow MJF to use an arm wringer to slam Moxley's arm into the ring apron, throwing Moxley back into the ring. But he also interferes right at the end of the match, going to give the Dynamite ring to MJF. He throws it to him. MJF misses the ring, and it falls behind him. So he goes down to his knees to pick it up. Well, guess who is distracting the referee to allow him to use the Dynamite ring? It's Wardlow, but because he fumbled the catch, Moxley, seeing that the ref was there, and you see that look in his eyes, is like, uh-oh, and he hits the paradigm shift and picks up the victory because the ref didn't see it on that one. Like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed this match. I thought this was really, really good on their end for both sides. They told a very good story going into the match. and told a very good story in the match itself of both guys trying to get their styles to work within the match. And it will be interesting to see how the Lance Archer Jon Moxley match is outgoing, because that's going to probably be about the same kind of style. So we'll see how that one ends up playing out down the line, and what they'll end up doing with that as well. It will be just another loss for Lance Archer and another win for Moxley, or are they going to do something that kind of, maybe builds Archer in some way, shape, or form? I don't know what they're going to end up doing with that. We'll see where they go with MJF as well. I expect MJF to get that AEW title at some point in time. Obviously, I did when I did predictions, I did not think it would happen this week, which I ended up being correct on that one. But we'll see where they end up going with that. And then, again, they can leave something open because, yes, Moxley used the paradigm shift in the match behind the referee's back to pick up the victory, so they could come back to that at a later time. Now, with this being said, overall, I have to give a definite feeling that I felt like a good portion of this show was actually good, but it definitely gets a massive downgrade in everything based off of what happened with that Sammy Guevara Matt Hardy match. Again, it's just, it never really needed to happen the way that they did that. Why they let it continue, I don't know, on that one as well. Like I said, luckily both of them are okay, but based off of like Matt Hardy's bump to go along with it as well, it's really good that he ended up being okay in the situation, but still never really, the spot never needed to happen. The spot itself never needed to happen. And, in all honesty, it takes this, pay-per-view down a grade. Like, I would have given this show a massive thumbs up on that particular, with the particular matches that were going on. But with what happened in that match and how they handled it, in the terms by the trainer and by the referee and everything that go along with that, they should have given Aubrey Edwards even more power to say, hey, we're not doing this. But apparently they did not in that one. And I don't know why the trainer would have let him even go back out there to go along with it. They should have just ended it in a no contest. It's like, we'll come back to this later, end this in a no contest. It's fine. Don't worry about it. They could have just moved on. But they didn't, and they did what they ended up doing here. And honestly, it takes this one down a lot, actually. I would probably put this in a middle of the road pay-per-view because, you saw with a lot of the fans afterwards, it's like, how do we want to react to anything like that? Like, what did we just see with that? And it took them a while to get back into the show, or even for some cases, most of them didn't really get back into the show all that much to begin with throughout the rest of the night. And yeah, it takes it down. It takes it down a lot. Otherwise, but for an otherwise what I felt like would have been a really good show, kind of goes into that more of a middle ground to below average show because of what ended up happening there. So yeah, that's everything I got for AEW's All Out on this one. If you did like everything, please give a like, share, subscribe, anything to support the channel on that one. And I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have yourself a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody.